Hello and welcome back to Pluck That. I'm Nick Ciraldo, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts Jonathan Bass and Mike Boyd. We are excited about this one because this is going to be the first time in which we have a great conversation with some industry professionals, the makers of the EarthQuaker devices effects pedals. Now, a number of years ago, Yes. if you're listening, if you're listening, Bass is showing our viewers some of their pedals. Number of years ago, I was invited over to Boyd's house and got to see all of his effects pedals, and I'm talking a lot of effects pedals, and these were of all different types, all making all different kinds of sounds. And little while later, I got to learn that Boyd was starting to make pedals. He made one for me. It sounds great. And just over the years, I've learned that he has become a connoisseur, an enthusiast, just really obsessed with pedals. And what better way than to have him manage this particular episode of Pluck That by being the main point person for the interview. Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about our guests?
Certainly will. My journey now, kind of back into the electric guitar world started about 10 years ago. And one of the first demos I saw that inspired me was a demo of an EarthQuaker Devices pedal. And I was like, what is this alchemy? What is going on there? And they are partly to blame for the number of pedals I have acquired over the years. I've always been a big fan, and here recently, I've loved following their feeds on social media, but just was turning on the news one night and saw CEO of EarthQuaker Devices, Julie Robbins, testifying before Congress, and it inspired me all the more to dig in a little bit more and find out, what makes her and her husband, Jamie Stillman, tick. They are such creative and ethical people when it comes to their business model and serving the community. So I think it is very inspiring to be able to have them agree to talk with us about many things. I'm sure that would be very enlightening.
Yes, indeed. We're going to have all kinds of people on this podcast, from guitarists to builders to effects pedals makers. And this one is a particularly exciting one. So let's get into it.
Well, we are thrilled to have Jamie Stillman and Julie Robbins with us from EarthQuaker Devices. Our podcast, as most of our listeners know, is garnering as diverse an audience as we can. So some of our listeners may not be familiar with EarthQuaker Devices, and I'd like to take a moment just to give a little bit of a summary of the history of this wonderful company. So if I understand correctly, Jamie, throughout the 90s and the 2000s, you had a very impressive resume as both musician and producer. And somewhere along the way, after an attempt to repair a broken pedal that you couldn't find a replacement for, you founded EarthQuaker Devices. Is that pretty much how the impetus for the company got started?
It's pretty accurate, yes.
Oh, great. And so after building in your home for a number of years, if you don't mind me saying, and I'm sure I'm probably not the first one to say this, but there was a bit of a seismic shift, if you will, and in 2011, you had your first dedicated facility. At the same time, that's when Julie came in as CEO after a very successful career in both finance and management. Is that pretty much true as well?
Yes, it was 2012 that we went to the
2012.
basement. Yeah,
Well,
you know,
thank you. Sorry,
aside
and I
from
hope
that,
I'm
accurate.
not glossing over anything that's important. But since then, it seems like your company has just really taken off. Not only just giving a lot of impressive designs regarding pedals, but just your company ethos and the aesthetic of what you put out through both trade dress, advertisements, and you've garnered quite a popular following. Kudos on that. I think it's really been an amazing journey for you. Tell us a little bit more about it. How did the name EarthQuaker come about?
So this is a weird story, I guess, but my old band, the Party of Helicopters, used to play all the time with this band called the Minus Tide from West Virginia, and we had always kind of half joked about starting a band together, like a heavy metal band, and they pitched the name EarthQuaker, and it was like roughly around. It's probably about a year before I started making pedals, and I just called them EarthQuaker devices. And had I known that we would turn into what we turned into, just based on having to read an email address alone, I would have chosen something much easier. But I like it now.
It is. It is quite an identity that you have developed for yourselves.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind me kind of addressing a little bit of the elephant in the room here, that obviously the guitar community is very familiar with the both of you and your products, but recently, Julie, there was you testified before Congress and you got a lot of national attention for doing so that probably made non-guitarists and musicians more aware of your name and maybe even the company. This came about as a reaction against tariffs and how they negatively impact the economy, small business community, as well as consumers. So you're taking the time to do that. Just saying thank you for standing up for something like that seems very inadequate. I've never met anyone who has testified before Congress. Many of us will never have such an opportunity or even really have the need to do so. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that experience, how it came about, and just all the ins and outs of what you did regarding this.
Sure. Well, I'm thinking back. So in April, when, post Liberation Day, there was so much chaos. That would be like the escalation of the trade war. And we were, of course, really concerned and seeing a pretty immediate impact on our business. So I was really just looking for ways to try to fight back. I pretty quickly realized like this isn't something that we can just live with easily. We should really try to push back on this, in my opinion, dangerous and reckless policy. So I'm on a lot of email lists. I got an email from the American Sustainable Business Network and Main Street Alliance inviting me to a call or a Zoom where they had various businesses that were speaking out. They also had some, I think it was Senator Maria Cantwell was on that call, and basically asking for businesses who are being impacted to share an impact statement. And then based on that impact statement, they asked if they could share it with their press and government officials list, and I agreed. And pretty quickly, Senator Markey of Massachusetts is the ranking member of the Senate Small Business Committee. His staff reached out to me first to find out more and then to see if I would be interested and available to testify. And I think what made me very appealing to folks like them or the media is that we are actually manufacturing in the U.S., whereas a lot of other companies that were immediately impacted are either importing goods that were manufactured elsewhere, or they're like retail stores or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with any of those business models, but if this is to support American manufacturing, it's not helping. And it was interesting because the Senate Small Business Committee, the topic wasn't necessarily about tariffs. It was about financing America's small business boom. And to me, that implied, taking out loans, taking out more loans. And for me, what I would need money for would be to pay these friggin' tariffs. And the idea of borrowing money to pay a tax to the government abruptly imposed on me was really offensive. So anyways, I had about 2 weeks notice that I was invited, and they had to do a background check and things like that on me. And it was interesting because we were on our way to Japan. So I worked on my testimony from Japan. And basically in the morning and at night, I would come back to it and make revisions to it. And I kind of got feedback from Senator Markey's staff members who were really helpful, because I had to consolidate my testimony down to, I can't remember how many words, but basically less than 2 pages. So I had 10 pages of written testimony, but could only give a 5-minute statement. But it was really helpful because I would kind of expand on things and then contract. And I don't know, it was just they were very helpful in getting me ready. And the folks from Main Street Alliance were really helpful as well. So I flew from Japan. Instead of coming home, I came back to the States a day early. I flew through Baltimore and stayed by the airport, took the train into the city the next day. And at 1:00 in the afternoon, I was there testifying. So it was really wild. I was quite surprised that, I was invited. I had to really think about if I wanted to do it. It felt a little bit, I don't know, like I could be making myself vulnerable. I think there were a lot of people that were scared to speak out at that time too, either to admit that their business was impacted negatively or because they were fearful of retaliation. But I remember having a talk with Jamie and our daughters, and we kind of talked through the pros and cons and felt like it was the right thing to do and maybe it could make a difference. And yeah, ultimately, I think it was a really good thing to do. Unfortunately, it didn't have an impact legally. Senator Markey was not able to introduce the bill that would exempt small businesses. It was actually blocked by a senator from Ohio, ironically, who has never returned any of my emails. Thank you very much, Bernie Moreno.
Oh, wow.
But our House representative, Amelia Sykes, used my testimony to testify in the House and try to get the bill introduced there as well. But yeah, it continues to be a long, drawn out, mess, basically. But I'm still asked about it pretty much all the time. I'll talk to anybody about it.
Well, indeed, mess is a good word, because I think that was the word that was just used with testimony before the Supreme Court this week regarding this legal challenge against it. So that may be a good segue into that topic. Since it is going before the High Court, we don't know how long this will take. Hopefully sooner rather than later, to know if his actions are deemed illegal and whether or not businesses will get a refund. Are you optimistic about that? Do you have any insight on how, if there are refunds, how they will be given, if you think that you qualify?
It would be really interesting if they could do that. To me, they have all the data. They took the money. They charge us a bill. They could send us a check back. That shouldn't be that hard.
You'd think, right?
I've been following this as closely as I can. I wasn't able to watch the Senate testimony yesterday. I was at the vet with our new rescue dog, who turns out to be in heat. So I missed all the testimony, but I've read about it, listened to some podcasts, and I don't know. It's hard to be optimistic about the Supreme Court these days. It seems like they're giving a lot of power to the executive branch. And even though it seems like on the face of it, IEPA does not give this kind of power to the president, it doesn't seem like the conservative heavy Supreme Court is trying to limit that power in any way. And even if the IEPA tariffs will be overturned, you know, all of the administration officials are saying if those get overturned, there's other ways that we're going to put these through. And so they're basically committed to this strategy, which really is not based on any kind of sound economic principles. It's based on an ideology. And just as much as they want to believe that, it doesn't make it helpful or good. It's going to be catastrophic if it continues.
Yeah, agreed. Before we move on to cheerier topics, I am curious. You mentioned being concerned if there might be any blowback to you personally or through the company for making your testimony. I would hope you had, a lot of positive comments in regards to how brave that was to take a stand. But what is your experience in regard to what you've, seen about this?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. It really brought a lot of our customers really rallied for us. So we had really strong sales in the weeks after having a really brutal couple months. We got, a couple of nasty emails from people that are just they really don't know what they're talking about when they give really, uninformed advice. And then, the comment section on the YouTube or, or on our local paper had some wild comments. And I know a lot of people were really worried that I would be upset or offended. But I really wasn't. Even when people were attacking me personally, it was easy for me to see, they don't know what they're talking about. A lot of the comments kind of boiled down to, oh, why are you so impacted so immediately? And I'm I'm trying to prevent the worst case outcome from occurring, speaking out now because I can project this into the future. And our sales did drop off precipitously. And our dealers told us it was because they were loading in on imports before the tariffs went back up. So it was not benefiting. And then, for people to be well, you're an idiot for having this business model the last 20 years. And then I look them up and they're a reverse mortgage broker and they're telling me I've got to evolve. I'm I don't think I can really learn anything from you. So
I think that's a healthy attitude to have in the face of that. So kudos for you.
Thanks. I also really wanted a roast for my 40th birthday and nobody would do it. And I feel I got that.
So you got it from the public, from the uninformed public.
Well, people are who cuts her bangs? They're crooked. I'm me.
Yeah,
I do. My hair's curly. I can't help it.
It's pretty universal. There's a shocking, similarity in the type of person that would make an appearance-related comment. It's always the same, young white man who is totally detached from reality. It's kind of telling about society, I would say.
Agreed.
The other thing that I thought was pretty interesting that came up out of this is the amount of comments on the internet. Again, we could chalk this up to just uninformed people, but telling us, oh, just buy your parts from the US. It's it's not that simple. This stuff isn't, I can't believe how many times it feels like it's been an eternity since April because of how many times you have to keep repeating these things are not and will never be made in the US because it is not viable. It's not a good money-making business for anybody. Not to mention that we have these long-standing relationships with these suppliers and we know it's good quality. At this point, we know where and how to get parts. and what is good quality. And we would like to continue working with these people, maintain these relationships. That's, a big part of how EarthQuaker is run, establishing long-term relationships.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good point. You are known for your quality and quality control, and your warranty for your products is exceptional. I mean, just almost unheard of in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I know that your customers very much appreciate that. Before we, move on to a few other things, Julie, you did mention that, your retailers, the sales dropped off because said, "Oh, we anticipate this coming, so we're going to load up on foreign products before the tariffs hit." These are the type of things I don't think any of us think about when we go into these discussions about economic policy changes this severe.
Yeah, it really was. It's like creating just a massive market disruption where there was an equilibrium
Mm-hmm.
that existed before, and that's all been just completely thrown out the window. And so everybody in the ecosystem, they do what they think is going to make the most sense for them. So, like other advice was like, well, why weren't you loading up on this stuff? Stockpiles
And
and knew the tariffs were coming. It's like, well, it's impossible to load up on everything forever. Like there's one other part I wanted to mention. I started doing some meetings with other pedal builders and also just other American brands. And there were maybe more than 40 brands on there. We were all like in the same boat. And everybody does things differently. Like there's no two companies that do things exactly the same. I can only think of a few that are as vertically integrated as EarthQuaker is, but everybody was reeling and everybody could not figure out how to move forward, and everybody's sales were down. And people were, had things that were in the air or on a boat and landed with almost 200% tariffs and other fees.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did my testimony and when I speak out, I really do try to represent not just me, but others in our industry and what they're experiencing as well. Of course, I only have like my own data, my own perspective, but it's part of what motivates me because it feels like there's this whole, industry that's in danger because of these reckless policies.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that people don't really talk about that we kind of touched on there is there was no like real strategy put in place for how these tariffs get collected, and there were it created a bunch of new fees at all these shipping companies. So like people aren't really talking about that as much. There's all these added expenses now for like collecting the fees, filing paperwork, like just things that we didn't have
10 different line items.
That we just didn't have to pay before.
Yeah. And those can add like another 10% or so. And, I've tried to figure out, like, is this a flat rate per item? Or like, it's really difficult to figure out how much they're going to be on any shipment. And sometimes they're not on them. And then other times they're there. So it's like, it's really inconsistent.
It's very confusing, and that whole process makes me very doubtful that if these get ruled illegal and they're told to give a refund, that it will be accurate. I just don't feel like the accounting was done very well. I mean, there was like in the early stages of this, most shippers didn't even know how to collect the tariffs, like what they were, how.
Well, the express shippers were already doing it. It was like the parcel, like, all the different, Japan Post and places like that they were used to doing things the way that they were doing, and they just didn't have the infrastructure. But companies like FedEx or DHL or UPS, they're used to it. But then there was times when the Federal Register did not even reflect the current rates. Like they had just dodged like all of these bureaucratic positions that would have been necessary to update like the government website so it had accurate So I know that there was like times that the tariffs were so unclear, like that the customs and whoever is handling it at the borders didn't have the all the information to be able to charge the right amount. And then I still think that there's errors. I saw the stationery company that was charged like 200% tariffs, and they could not figure out how to talk to anybody to file a refund or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
very unclear. I've tried to reach like the trade representative, and none of their, they don't answer emails or phone calls. Um, Even just trying to call like DHL is challenging. And then tracking things, they'll stay in customs for like who knows how long. Like it used to be very predictable how long it would take for things to clear, and now things are not as predictable. They might stay there for a long time, and there's been some speculation because there were a lot of things that were sitting there before the additional 50% aluminum tariff went up, that were they waiting to be able to charge the higher rate and then put things through. But like there's no way of knowing, and it's not based on when it lands or when it ships. That was when it clears customs. So yeah, it's really crazy, really unpredictable, and just a mess.
Well, this is why it's so important, I think, to have these open and frank discussions. These are the type of things we don't hear in the media, the real impacts of business owners that are keeping the American economy afloat. So I really appreciate you being so honest and letting us really kind of dive into that.
My pleasure.
You do have a very effective business model, unique in many ways. Your website is really great with the amount of information you put out, how open you are, and especially in regards to customer service, engendering inclusivity. I remember this summer there was the Pride Month giveaway. You just a few days ago posted the playlist in honor of celebrating Native American heritage and music. I think it's really great that you're so open with the community. So one of the things that I also noticed, several times now is the idea of EarthQuaker Day and getting people involved. Can you tell us a little bit about what EarthQuaker Day is?
Sure. It's our customer appreciation, community appreciation day. And we're not usually open to the public, but we open up to the public the first Saturday of every August. We set up a big tent in the parking lot of our headquarters. We invite a lot of other companies to come exhibit or help sponsor the event. And we get a lot of other pedal companies, we get guitar companies, music retailers, community organizations, local artists, local record stores, things like that. And we put on like a little music festival. So at our headquarters, we'll have a stage with different clinics or demonstrations or bands. We'll open up the shop so that people can see how we build things. We'll make a bunch of limited edition colorways, like each one unique, and make those available for sale. And then we have free shows at night at a club in downtown Akron. And it's just, a really fun, chill time. Like it's always got a great energy. A lot of our users, our customers come from all over the country to like meet up at this event. And it's, every year we kind of tweak it a little bit, try to refine it and make it even more pleasant for everybody. There'll be food trucks, and this year I started doing a breakfast for vendors, things like that. Yeah, it's really fun.
It sounds great. I've seen some similar things, happening with the Fretboard Summit that Fretboard Journal does, bringing in lots of folks. It really is something I think quite unique, and like you said, there's a lot of customer buy-in, but it seems like you have a lot of employee buy-in to what you're doing. You mentioned being vertically integrated. A lot, I think, of creative freedom for a lot of your designers. You mentioning the unique colorways that you have on your pedals. I see that all the time. In fact, the Dispatch Master that I have was one of the unique colorways, one of the purple sparkles. It's just everything is so view, and he's got the afterneath with the purple sparkle
Awesome.
finish. It's just really creative from not only the idea of creating the soundscapes with the pedals that you have designed, the circuits you've designed, but very engaging, like I said, colorways and unique trade dress and all that. So, tell me a little bit about your employee buy-in and the freedom that they have to work with various designs.
I mean, well, I'll start with the buy-in part. We're really lucky. We have a really dedicated group of employees. Um, Most of them are here in Akron. We have a couple that work remotely from elsewhere. But they take a lot of pride in what they do. They, have meticulous standards and, work really hard to make everything as great as possible, including coming together to put on an event like EarthQuaker Day or sometimes doing other types of events outside of their normal duties. And then our enclosure manufacturing team in particular really knock it out of the park. They, especially for EarthQuaker Day and the customs, this is when they can really put their creative stamp on things. So they'll be working all year. Whenever they're experimenting with the color, they'll powder a few different enclosures. They'll be thinking about like what maybe themes they want to explore, stuff like that, and then experimenting with different kind of powder coating processes or finishes. And we always love it because they're in another building, and when they start getting assembled, we start laying them out, and it's really exciting. It's like so cool to see what they've come up with, and especially when you get to see them all together, it's incredible.
That does sound amazing. I would be a little bit remiss since we're obviously engaging in business practices here. How music and business in general over the years has been a very male dominated industry, and I love the fact that I'm seeing a lot of vintage photos come out. We are all familiar, I'm sure, with seeing about how women got behind the war effort in World War II and were manufacturing. And we look at the old, photos from Leo Fender's factory, and we see the women that are putting the amps together. Women have always been a strong force, just not always as visible. But in the guitar, pedal building community, it wasn't really into the 90s we started seeing, kind of an entry into this, glass ceiling moment. Frantone, Daisy Rock, and even you seem to be a bit on the cusp of this wave, Julie, that is really empowering. Where do we have to go from here to continue this momentum?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I'll tell you that there's no shortage of brilliant, talented women that are competent and capable. I meet them all the time. Um, I don't know what all needs to shift to get away from just the male dominance, other than continuing to improve representation and offering a seat at the table to make sure that everybody's represented there. But it definitely has nothing to do with like talent or capacity. In many ways, it's just takes a long time for an old boys club to turn over. But I get treated very respectfully by everybody in the pedal community. I feel really, you know, supported within it. They've all been like really kind and grateful about my testimony as well. which is really sweet of them. Sometimes I get a little embarrassed by how grateful they are, but I know that they mean really well. But in the cultural context right now with the Trump administration, there's a attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's those types of policies and efforts that would help make representation more equitable. And now, people act like that's a dirty word, that it should be illegal, that it's discriminating against white people, and all these things that I just don't agree with. I think that all of the things that were important before are still important now, and I'm really just sad to see all of these efforts being lost. And it's probably, one of the most challenging times for civil rights in our country in the last 60 years. It's really, really scary to see all of the rights being rolled back and things like that. So I wish I had some answers for you, but it's a really challenging time.
It really does feel like a step in the wrong direction. Yeah. So I don't, being able to talk about it, and being, free, I think, to, point out the disparity that is happening now, I think is part of it. I think it's encouraging to hear you say in, the pedal building community, you are finding that support, because historically we have seen, we think about the Mad Men stereotypes, how, women are derided when they try to, exercise some kind of influence. So the fact that there is support there, and I think largely we do have, still a lot of people who are willing to support these diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, and we just really hope that it weathers the storm and the momentum does not cease. Well, we don't necessarily want to be, there's so many great pedal podcasts and shows out there that really dive into, the ins and outs of how pedals work, and, that pedal show being among them. I remember my first experience with EarthQuaker devices was probably a decade ago, when Andy Martin did a demo of the transmitter, and I was just blown away. I think it was maybe the first demo I'd seen of him play. I mean, such a creative guy, and the textures he was coaxing out of that pedal was really inspiring. But it seems like you've had so many pedals that, dare I say, could be flagships for EarthQuaker. And we mentioned the Dispatch Master. The Avalanche Run was a game changer. Even your take on the 205 circuit with the Gray are just, legendary at this point. I may turn this a little bit over to Nick, because we had seen a lot of artists that aren't necessarily sorry, Jonathan, aren't necessarily
I'm standing here with two. I've got this never leaves my board.
This is true. This is true.
And I want to know about the inspiration of this, because I actually think that this is fantastic. I mean, like, just the design inspiration for this, I've always been kind of curious about, like, especially the tonality knob, if that's the right way to call it. I don't know, but this is fantastic. Just the design concept of this. I'm sorry, Boyd.
No, please go ahead. I think this is great.
Yeah, that's my question. Just the design concept.
The afternoon. I mean, I think I worked on that in 2012. I know it was like right when we had moved from the basement into the shop. I wasn't trying to make what it became. It was actually a tiny mistake in code that produced something really interesting, and I was like, oh, this is not what I'm trying to do, but this is really, really cool. So just kind of explored that more and took it to its extremes. And that was really, I mean, it once I hit that point, it was kind of like an afternoon and then I was super happy with it. And honestly, I mean, that pedal changed the entire course of EarthQuaker. It like really took us to like not just another like maybe 3 levels up,
Yeah.
like almost like over the course of a month. Like I know Julie tells the story all the time, but it's like there was a point where we had to hire like 8 people in a day just to keep up with manufacturing uh, the Afterneath as well as our other pedals. And just lately, I've started feeling more comfortable to say such grandiose statements as it started the experimental reverb category. Up until that point, there was nothing like that. And now I feel like it's pretty commonplace for there to be all these wild reverbs that do all this crazy stuff. But I mean, it's kind of nice to have had that impact.
I
I'll
think
say.
it's fair. I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
Jonathan, you hit that one out of the park. Good question.
Now, Nick, it's your turn. I'm sorry, Nick.
No.
Well, we were, have noticed how there's many classical musicians, harpist. Nick has been involved with some collaborative efforts where these artists playing acoustic instruments or traditionally acoustic instruments are now utilizing a lot of guitar effects. And we've seen that be the case with many of the EarthQuaker effects. And I think it's because of what you just mentioned, that sonic landscape and the ambient reverb kind of to that next level.
Yeah, I feel like things like the Afterneath, and you had mentioned the Transmitter earlier, or Astral Destiny, Dispatch Master. They all kind of really lend themselves to just generating an atmosphere, and like they're not overpowering the instrument, but they're kind of adding to it and responding. And it always, I feel like those pedals in particular seem to work really well with like orchestral instruments, vocals, things like harp, synthesizers, stuff like that. They're very soundscapey, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Yeah, and
Nick, I
so
don't know if you had, yeah, so go ahead, Nick, sorry.
yeah, no, just as Mike said, this is a podcast for all things guitar, all different backgrounds, all different kinds of guitarists. And um, I come to this as a classical guitarist. And so I will be playing in front of an orchestra. I'll be playing with an ensemble. I'll be playing solo. And I don't know if you have anything in your current list of pedals that someone like me could use. Now I'm talking about just like a very basic pedal boosting the sound or something in that regard.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the Dispatch Master is widely used on like acoustic classical guitar. Um, I hear it over and over again that people take a chance on it and they end up being like thrilled that they did. It responds nicely and it adds some atmosphere, but it doesn't get in the way. It doesn't take over what you're playing. And that pedal in particular, it has no bad settings. You can set the time anywhere you want, even if it's not in time, it's still gonna work. It kind of just gels nicely
Yeah.
with whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And then
We
also,
also did a Black Eye, which is a clean boost that we used to have in our line. We did a reissue on Reverb. It just launched today.
Yeah, I
And
just got the text for that. That's cool.
yeah, so it's a blacked out Black Eye,
Yeah,
and we'll just give you a volume boost if that's what
yeah,
you're.
it's a good preamp for that, or like our Tone Job, which is the 3-band active EQ, works very well with that. I feel like we should mention at this point that we actually have collaborated with the Akron Symphony on a couple pieces that were made specifically to use our pedals.
oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to look that up. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, on our YouTube channel, there's a video of the performance of Confluence, which was an original composition, and a video about the making of it. And then on any kind of digital platform, streaming platform, you can find the Akron Symphony's recordings of both confluence and conflagration.
Yeah.
There may even
And
be a third at some point.
one of the composers, John Sonnenberg, he's a brilliant engineer. He works at a company in Akron called Circle Prime, but he's also an incredible musician. He's a genius. He's very smart, very, very well spoken, creates all these unique homemade instruments that I've never seen anything like. He actually worked on the afterneath, the control that you were talking about, the modes. He developed that for the afterneath because he thought that that would make a really good Eurorack module, and that was his contribution to it. And I liked it so much, we ended up putting it in the pedal. But yeah, he composed it and he played the effects. So all these different instruments were being run through different pedals on a pedal board, and as the orchestra was playing, he was manipulating the sounds along with it.
That's
Sounds amazing.
That's an awesome Akron story. An Akron composer, Akron company, pedal maker, playing music, or being performed by the Akron Symphony. And
yeah, even more Akron, John Sonnenberg works at the company Circle Prime, which is owned by Mark Mothersbaugh from Bevo, and all of the soundtrack work.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
and like 10 minutes
very
away
Akron.
About 10 minutes away from about half of my family that lives in Akron. So that's also cool. These
oh wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, these behind the scenes stories are very intriguing to me, and I'm sure our listeners get a kick out of it. One thing that came to mind was asking you if there was I thought of this when you were telling Jonathan about the how the design of one pedal went in a totally different direction, but it was still cool. Ended up being successful. It sounds like very successful. Was there any pedal, like, is there a pedal story that you'll never forget, or is there something, not necessarily a really great pedal, but just some kind of something about the process of making this pedal that was kind of special to you?
I think they all have some piece of that. Like, I am always a product doesn't end up coming out if I didn't get inspired by it during the development process. You know what I mean? Like, I work on a lot of things. I feel like I've been saying this a lot, like a broken record. Like last year alone, I prototyped like over 40 products. And some of them were like our utility line and things like that, but at least 30 of them haven't come out and might not come out, where it's just like they're ideas I have, you see them through, and at the end it's like, yeah, it works, and yes, it sounds good. It could be useful for some people, but like, has it inspired me to like write a riff? Have I like lost a couple hours just playing around with it? Not necessarily. And those ideas kind of get put aside for like, what could I do to take it to another level? And also like, what inspires me and what I'm aiming for changes like almost on a monthly basis. So, like, there's like a point in time where like I could have worked on things like the afterneath all day long, and like now I really love working on fuzz pedals because it's really exciting to me at the moment, or just like changing form factors into the small pedals, things like that. But the afterneath is for sure one where like when I stumbled upon that, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I didn't know that I wanted something like this, but I really needed something like this, and I'm guessing other people really would too. And it was accurate, and it's really nice to see, like, when you put something out in the world and like you can't keep up with the demand for it. And I don't mean that in terms of like money or whatever coming in. It's like people are so excited by it. They're like, when you get to talk to them, like they're visibly excited. Yeah. Or inspired by it. And like that's probably the most rewarding experience about taking something from my brain and putting it out into the world. Another one would be like the Rainbow Machine, where it was just like, the pedal's been out now for like 15 years and I'm still discovering new things myself. And it's like, it's a pedal that I think that people don't necessarily understand, but it does really, really well. It's another flagship pedal for us still to this day.
And
That's wonderful. So is your role in the company now largely with development of the products, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, my day to day is development. I'm
When
always working on stuff.
when did you transition? When did you have the freedom as your company grew to really transition fully into that and away from maybe some of the day-to-day operation of building or quality control?
Really, like when Julie came in, and then we have Luke Zollinger, who is our COO, and he's kind of running, he's driving the ship every day. We'll say he's making sure all the moving pieces keep moving together so we can all get our stuff done. But between the two of them, like that, at some point, I probably could have just focused more on design if I learned to give up control earlier. But like, there's stuff that I really like to do. Like I was like pretty tied to things. And don't get me wrong, like I mean, I'm still very involved in like all the decision making processes, and I'm in every meeting that I could possibly be in that I have something to do with, and things like that. So, I would say my every day is like 50-50 of like development slash troubleshooting and then business related things. But largely, um, I would consider myself more in product development.
That sounds wonderful. Kind of living the dream there. I aspire to that. With the a while back, I saw an article that referenced some research that Fender had put out that has really kind of stuck with me regarding the growth of the industry. And I think it sticks with me because being an educator, we're always trying to think, how can we maintain students coming into, music? How can we help them be successful and maintain a career themselves? But some of the stats that they quoted were that 90% of new guitar players will abandon playing within 1 year. The 10% of them that don't quit will spend an average of 10 grand on, whatever hardware over the course of their lifetime, buying multiple guitars, multiple amps. And the point of that research, when they published it, was, well, what can we do to get just one more person to buy in? Because that would double the industry. Do you have any thoughts regarding that, or what could be done to bolster people finding an instrument, finding their creativity, and not being discouraged and sticking with it?
I really think if we had more of an emphasis on building a thriving middle class, that if we had a country where the middle class was thriving, that would really, really do so much. But if you're in survival mode, you don't have the luxury to create art or pursue hobbies. So it's really about meeting basic needs, meeting those bottom tiers of like Maslow's hierarchy, having food, shelter, housing, those things, and some discretionary income. But I feel like everybody has some aspirations, some sort of creative gifts, whether it's, in music or visual arts, or sometimes there's really gifted people that can do anything creative. But yeah, I think for me, what I'm seeing and what are the biggest challenges for consumers is that the middle class is just under so much pressure from so many different angles.
Can you say that one more time for the people on the back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my pleasure. And when you're in a country with a thriving middle class, it feels so nice. Like we were just in Sweden, Japan, even though they have economic issues and things, but they still have a very strong middle class. And you can really tell there's a nice standard of living among people, and the pressure and everything, it just keeps getting more and more polarized in America.
I was just going to say there's no coincidence that, when you start to see in history a middle class arise, that democracy starts to arise,
Mhm.
and without one, you can't have the other. So.
Yeah. It's been pretty interesting. Like, we traveled a lot this year. We did a lot of trade shows and clinics and getting to talk to people one on one, and largely outside of the United States, which, like, I can't think of a better time to have left the country. But like, the feeling in other places, like Julie mentioned, like Sweden, I'll just say all of Europe, like going to Australia, Japan, like, it is so much more relaxed. I feel like when people aren't worrying about all of these things, like they feel more comfortable to like open up and be creative. And just, you can, when you can see it happening in other places, it's like, I don't want to oversimplify, but it's like it would be so easy. Like, if you just like prioritize everybody's mental health, prioritize everybody having some kind of shelter in what is supposed to be like one of the the most thriving country, like the country that people used to look to for inspiration, like, and we can't even do this. We got like 1 million abandoned buildings. We're funding wars all over the place, and we can't do it. So yeah, it sucks. It is total chaos. I will say this on a completely unrelated note to that. Something that I think is important for getting people interested in music and maintaining interest in music is stop making it a technology race. Like, stop making it about having the best, having, everybody has lost focus on it is supposed to be fun to pick up a musical instrument and play it. They're obsessed with this idea of like, I need the biggest thing and the best thing. And what is the sample rate of that? Oh, you're an idiot. Why would you buy this thing? It's like, don't stop doing that. Just play the guitar, like, have fun doing it. And, we can't fight the future, I guess. I want to punch the future in the face, but it's like, like, when people start getting obsessed with making perfect art, everything, it makes it so stressful. It makes it not fun. Like, no one's just plugging into a 4-track anymore and writing anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're fighting to keep it on a grid. They're trying to use the right chord structures together. They're trying to keep noise out of it. They're looking to people on YouTube who are like just showing themselves shredding and not showing the 500 takes it took to get that, right. And they're like, well, I need to be like this. And it's like, it's supposed to be fun. And I do think that, like, I'm sure we're guilty of it too at times. Just like, manufacturers are just stressing people the fuck out.
Yeah.
We're like just putting an emphasis on like, how advanced and how futuristic stuff is, as opposed to just like, it's fun, make noise with it.
Yeah.
Well, as inspirational as this entire conversation has been, that right there, just that Frank Zappa mentality, shut up and play your guitar, just, that's inspiring in and of itself right there. So we all, I think, need to hear that at some point in time. Well, we've taken a huge amount of your evening, and again, you have no idea how much we appreciate you being with us. Just wanted to open up, see if you have any final thoughts and maybe some ideas about, the future of EarthQuaker devices and any other jewels of wisdom you would like to share with us.
It's a weird time in our industry. It's a weird time in America, but there's all sorts of rays of light out there. You just have to look for them. And I'm optimistic about the future. I'm confident in our ability to navigate challenging times. That is what running a business is. It's just overcoming millions of obstacles, large and small. So I feel really hopeful. I think we all really need to stick together and be really like kind and civil to each other, and remember, the humanity that we all share, and try to make that be a priority in our lives. being good to each other.
Yeah.
I
And I think that like EarthQuaker as a company, like we have a lot of really great people working here and very smart, very dedicated, and can see a lot of different angles of things. And we've been able to weather all kinds of weird storms. And this is definitely a major industry shift, but we've been able to adapt very quickly throughout all of this stuff. And like our customer support has been insane. And, it's like, it's a different business today than it was in January, and especially different than it was like 2 years ago in January. You know what I mean? But like, we still keep going, we still keep moving, and we're pretty good at adapting. And I'll also say that our particular segment of the industry, like the guitar effects world, is a really great like community to be in. Like, I don't feel like we're competitors with anybody. It feels like a community. I not to use the same word twice. It's just everybody is so like friendly and welcoming and open and like willing to talk about like their struggles or their successes or share information. And like, you know, I can't think of like a better segment of the industry really, really to be in. It's been pretty awesome.
Well, here's to that. Here's to you continuing to do what you do. The world is a better place in general, not only the guitar community having such creative and driving forces such as yourselves, but just in business in general. So
I also wanted to just say a few things as well to wrap up my thoughts from this great conversation. First, Julie, when you were sharing with us not only the story of your trip to Washington, but your the behind the scenes, that's just a great ton of badassery. Very little notice, no sleep, coming from Japan. I mean, that's kind of heroic work, and I wanted to salute you for that. And to all the criticism of that you received, I mean, like a good CEO, you would want to get ahead of those kinds of things and act strategically. And so it just makes perfect business sense for you to have done what you did. And then I feel a great deal of sympathy for you because your customers just want to make music. They want to create art, and they see your pedals as tools for helping them do that. And so, for this and all the other things that you have brought up, I hope that many people hear this.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think that'll do it. We appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on Pluck That. We have been speaking with Julie Robbins and Jamie Stillman of EarthQuaker Devices. Check them out online, consume their products, and thanks again, guys, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Pluck That. Soon, we will be interviewing luthier Josia Dejonge. I would like to invite listeners and viewers to send questions for this upcoming guest. You can do that by just dropping a comment in our YouTube, any of our YouTube videos. You can also send an email to the following email address. That's pluckthatguitarpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on anywhere you catch your podcasts and also on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.